Morning Warriors, thanks for joining me this week on WhyShaiwhy. Today I want to talk about the reasons why you would not implement an Agile transformation. Now, coming from someone who loves Agile, this is kind of going to be kind of difficult for me. Um, but one of the things I've made a mistake on myself and I've seen others make a mistake on is that we think of Agile as a one-size-fits-all concept, and it really is not. For others that might be quite obvious, but there are too many mistakes being made for us not to talk about that. So today I'm going to talk about four different things that you should probably look at. Think of it as a bit of a checklist, a health check on your organization to implement Agile as your methodology going forward. Okay, so let's get into this. I'm going to ask a series of questions basically for you to understand what the health of your organization is in terms of implementing Agile. Okay, now that doesn't give you necessarily, in some cases it doesn't give you the health of the organization full stop, but at least in terms of getting ready for an Agile transformation. So question number one, guys, the organizational culture, does it value transparency and or learning? Now, the reason I ask this question of any teams that I meet with who want to go down the Agile path is that um, Agile in itself is going to be quite disruptive. It's going to be very transparent. It basically shines a light on some of the most ugliest parts of your organization. And because we do that, we need to ensure that the organizational culture will allow for that learning from mistakes of the past or mistakes that have been swept under the rug. Um, and if you are in an organization where you see that mistakes are covered up, for example, because of political reasons, or people are very scared because they're going to get reprimanded for taking a risk that doesn't pay off, and so that you have a very low risk culture, or at least an appetite for risk is quite low. Those are the sort of cultures where Agile will really not work very well. There are ways, techniques, I guess, but they're kind of tricks to circumnavigate that problem. And really, at the end of the day, if you do have a culture that doesn't allow for learning, then you're in trouble, because iterative learning is the baseline for any Agile methodology. Okay. Number two, guys, the software engineering or software development team, or their activities, are seen as IT only activities. Now, I've seen this in way too many organizations. What you will see in Agile from the moment, the start, the first sprint, probably even before the first sprint, is that we go as an IT department, say in a corporate, we go from a service orientation, not meaning to use the technical word here, but from a service provider, say, helping people out with their computer needs or helping writing some software for a certain person. We go from that kind of process to a more collaborative process, a lot more engagement, and a lot less finger pointing, right? Because we've worked at it as a team. So if your organization sees software development or software engineering as an IT only activity, you're going to have trouble with transforming into an Agile methodology. What you want really ideally is ownership of feature sets or product, or even to a certain extent the modules or the process, the Agile process. You want that ownership to be sitting squarely in the product owner's hands, or in somewhere outside of technology, okay, or the IT department. If that is the case, and you can see that there's engagement between and collaboration between technology and non-technology teams, then you're probably ready. Okay. Number three has to do everything with Agile. With leadership. Agile, in the mindset, in the view of the leader, Agile is seen as a methodology, not as a mindset. Now, that has some underlying issues with it, and I know that's not obvious straight away, but the key things that I look for is things like, or statements like this. You'll see a leader say, we're fine with the technology team or the software development team to use an Agile methodology. That's not really what we're getting at here, guys. Everybody needs to at least fall in line with the Agile methodology, the iterations, the pulse checks that are happening as we go through an iteration. All those sort of things need to be total buy-in from leadership, right? So your leadership team needs to have 100% buy-in, and they need to then be able to portray that buy-in and the benefits of Agile through the whole organization. We don't want to hear things like, it's fine as long as it doesn't impact us. We allow them to do it because it works for them. Those are sort of things that are really useful, of course, because you get, prescriptive support, but you're not getting low-level support, which is exactly what you're going to need when the ugliness that I talked about earlier, question number 1, comes up, right? The key here is this: you need to talk to your leadership team and executives in a way that they understand. So when I start talking to them, we do a whole workshop just for execs, basically. And I start giving them the example of financial reporting. Now, these guys will do financial reporting monthly, quarterly, sometimes biannually or semi-annually, and also annually, right? That in itself is a bit iterative. And so I use that as a metaphor to make them understand how the development process would work in an agile world. Okay. And the last thing, guys, is to ask yourself, and this is, I know this is kind of a throwaway sometimes, but some organizations have this particular, set of scenarios, and that is that the projects are either not very complex, so quite simplistic in nature, and requirements are very well known, or that everyone's in agreement of what is needed. Any of those two things, you probably don't need Agile. In fact, it's probably overkill to be in an Agile world if you have complexity or simplicity on your side, I guess, and a team that's fully agreeing on everything that needs to be done. On top of that, you want to ensure that nothing's going to change as well, and that's sometimes the case. Okay, so no requirements are changing, agreement is easily achieved. Basically, what I'm doing here, guys, is talking about the Ralph Stacey matrix of complexity. I might show you that actually in a second, right now. Okay, that's where it is there. So basically what you'll see is that I've got 2 dimensions, agreement and complexity, and that big section in the middle is where all your complexity is and where you would probably fit in an Agile. But anything back near the origin on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, that is probably not an Agile world. Okay, so you don't really need to do that. Alright guys, so that's 4 things that we want to consider before we even think about Agile. Please note them down, and if you have any questions, we're happy to give you support and help. In the meantime, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next week.